The countdown to June 12, 2026 has officially begun. This date is no longer a simple administrative deadline on a government calendar. It has become a metaphorical sword of Damocles hanging directly over the future of Prince Harry in the United States of America. In a move of chilling precision, the U.S. Department of State has finalized a tactical delay in the release of 2,500 pages of Prince Harry's highly sensitive immigration records. This delay was not chosen by accident or administrative error. It falls exactly after King Charles III completes his historic state visit to Washington, ensuring that the impending legal explosion surrounding the Duke of Sussex does not overshadow the majesty of the sovereign. For the first time in modern royal history, the British monarchy has not only stepped back from protecting one of its own, but has actively cleared the path for the American judicial system to treat a prince of the blood as a common resident. The era of royal immunity for Harry has completely vanished. It has been replaced by an administrative execution that could see the Duke facing deportation for visa fraud, a direct consequence of his own admissions published in his memoir Spare. Since March 2026, Buckingham Palace has been fully aware that the Freedom of Information Act lawsuit filed by the Heritage Foundation was reaching a critical breaking point. Instead of intervening to shield Harry from the unsealing of his records, the palace deliberately chose a path of calculated neutrality. They allowed the U.S. State Department to miss its previous disclosure deadlines and quietly pushed the release date to mid-June. The monarchy made a cold, strategic decision. The king's diplomatic mission to Washington must remain focused entirely on the special relationship between nations, not the fractured and deeply painful relationship between a father and his estranged son. The visit was to be about statecraft, trade, and global alliances, not about saving Harry from the legal consequences of his own choices. This strategy, heavily influenced by Prince William and Princess Anne, was designed with clinical precision. The palace needed media attention locked entirely on the king's agenda, while the Harry immigration scandal remained effectively quarantined until the king had safely departed American soil. Every move was calculated, every silence was intentional, and every delay served the monarchy's long-term institutional survival. The psychological and legal weight of the June 12 deadline cannot be overstated. For Harry, it represents a moment of absolute and unprecedented personal vulnerability. If the 2,500 pages of immigration documentation prove that he failed to disclose his extensive history of drug use on his DS-160 visa application, the legal repercussions under U.S. immigration law are mandatory and non-negotiable. Harry openly boasted in Spare about his use of cocaine, marijuana, and psychedelic mushrooms. Visa fraud is not a minor infraction under American law. It is a non-discretionary ground for the revocation of residency status and the subsequent deportation of the individual regardless of their wealth, fame, or royal bloodline. The profound irony of this situation is devastating. The very book Harry used as a weapon to publicly attack the institution of the monarchy has now become the primary legal evidence for his potential expulsion from his American sanctuary. His pursuit of personal truth, his desire to tell his own story on his own terms, has handed his political adversaries the ammunition needed to dismantle his life in California permanently. The role of the Prince of Wales in this strategic abandonment has been pivotal, uncompromising, and ruthlessly effective. Prince William, described by multiple insiders as the single driving force behind the hardline institutional approach, has successfully argued that the monarchy must permanently end the unsustainable half-in, half-out model that Harry has attempted to maintain since his departure in 2020. William's core position is simple, brutal, and legally airtight. A royal who is not a working royal cannot expect the protections of the crown or the privileges of the British state. Consequently, the palace moved systematically to fill every gap that Harry left behind, including the permanent appointment of James Alexander to fill administrative roles, effectively cutting off any remaining institutional path back for the Duke of Sussex. By filling these critical positions, William sent a powerful and unmistakable signal to the global community, to Washington, and to the legal establishment. The Windsor machine is fully staffed, fully functional, and completely operational without Harry. This was a calculated strategic move designed to deroyalize the Duke in the eyes of the American government before the legal storm reached its full destructive force. The palace's legal team, working in coordination with the British Foreign Office, issued clear and definitive directives years ago to ensure that Harry would be treated purely as a private citizen under American law. When Harry stepped down from royal duties in 2020, the palace made a quiet but firm legal declaration that would take years to fully reveal its devastating consequences. Harry was reclassified as eligible only for an O1 Extraordinary Ability Visa, rather than the A1 Diplomatic Visa traditionally granted to senior members of the royal family. This precise legal maneuver was a masterpiece of long-term institutional planning. By stripping Harry of his A1 diplomatic status years in advance, the monarchy ensured that by 2026, Washington would be completely free to investigate him without infringing on diplomatic protocols or invoking sovereign immunity. In the eyes of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security today, Harry is simply another tax resident, subject to the same immigration laws as any other foreign national living on American soil. The King's approval of this hands-off policy, guided by the advice of William and senior government advisors, serves a dual purpose. It preserves the integrity of the monarchy as an institution that visibly respects the rule of law, while permanently preventing the Harry situation from becoming an international crisis involving the British sovereign. Throughout April 2026, the palace's response to every inquiry about the Heritage Foundation lawsuit has been reduced to a single, icy, and carefully rehearsed refrain. We do not comment on the private legal matters of the Duke of Sussex. This silence is not a lack of engagement. It is a precision-engineered strategic weapon deployed with maximum effect. By refusing to send royal lawyers, refusing to offer any form of public support, and refusing to acknowledge Harry's legal vulnerability, the Crown has redirected all pressure back onto the Duke and the American judicial system entirely. This calculated distance reinforces the dominant legal and media narrative. Harry is a commoner in every sense that matters under the law. This institutional silence makes it completely impossible for Harry to claim he is being persecuted as a representative of the British state. He cannot hide behind the crown he abandoned. He cannot invoke the institutional protection of a family he publicly attacked. He is a man standing completely alone against a 2,500-page immigration file that contains the potential evidence of his own destruction. As April 2026 unfolds, the narrative surrounding the Duke of Sussex has shifted dramatically from one of tragic royal exile to one of a foreign national who has overstayed his welcome, exhausted his cultural capital, and potentially committed federal immigration fraud. Donald Trump has masterfully seized upon this moment, using his massive platform to frame Harry's continued American residency as the ultimate symbol of corrupt elite exceptionalism. Trump's message to the American public is direct, blunt, and politically devastating for Harry. In a world of fair laws and equal justice, a man who openly admits to illegal drug use in his own best-selling book should not be enjoying the sun of California, while thousands of ordinary immigrants are deported for far less serious infractions. This is not merely campaign rhetoric. It is a direct and sustained political threat to the legal foundation of Harry's continued presence in the United States. By positioning Harry as the primary target of the law and order movement, Trump has effectively stripped away the romantic prince narrative and replaced it with a far more dangerous label, immigration fraud suspect. This political pressure is precisely what transformed a standard Freedom of Information Act request into a full constitutional showdown between elite privilege and the equal application of American law. The active exclusion policy of Buckingham Palace has now moved decisively into the realm of financial and deep social isolation. Without the active endorsement of the King or the Prince of Wales, Harry's residual royal status in the United States has become a hollow, worthless shell. In the elite power circles of Hollywood and Silicon Valley, the primary currency is not wealth. It is access and institutional legitimacy. When it becomes widely understood that Harry has zero access to the King, and that the King is actively coordinating with the United States government to ensure his own state visit is not disrupted by his estranged son's mounting scandals, Harry's commercial value as a business partner completely evaporates. The collapse of his major media deals is not simply a result of poor content quality. It is a direct market response to the realization that the Sussex brand is no longer backed by any real institutional prestige. The loss of coordinated government security has created an additional financial nightmare that emphasizes Harry's fundamentally commoner status on American soil. He must now fund his own private security teams and navigate the extraordinarily complex web of local firearm permits and private protection laws without the international treaties that once protected his every movement. Every time he steps into a car or walks into a public space, he is paying millions of dollars for a protection that was once his constitutional birthright. The Heritage Foundation's lawsuit is built on a single, powerful, and legally unassailable principle: equal justice under the law regardless of title, wealth, or royal lineage. Their legal team has argued with devastating forensic clarity that if Harry openly admitted to extensive illegal drug use in his published memoir, yet deliberately checked no on his DS-160 visa application regarding drug use, he committed a mandatory deportable federal offense. By suing for the release of the full 2,500 pages of immigration files, the Heritage Foundation has forced the Department of Homeland Security into an impossible political corner. Either the government proves that Harry was completely honest on his application and was formally granted a rare legal waiver, or they reveal that he lied and was quietly given a pass by a politically sympathetic administration. Both outcomes are catastrophic for his reputation and his residency. This is the ultimate legal trap for a man who has publicly branded himself as a fearless champion of radical transparency and personal truth. Harry is now caught in a devastating vice between the public record he personally created with his own words and the private federal record held securely by the U.S. government. There is no escape route, no diplomatic back channel, and no royal rescue coming from London. By late April 2026, Buckingham Palace has officially and permanently filled the roles and senior titles once held by the Duke of Sussex. The appointment of James Alexander and the formal redistribution of military patronages to working members of the royal family serve as a definitive and public signal to the entire world. The House of Windsor is structurally complete, and Harry is no longer any component of its functioning architecture. This total institutional severance was a necessary and carefully planned precursor to the legal storm now building its full force in Washington. The palace clearly understood that as long as Harry retained any form of official standing within the monarchy, his potential deportation from the United States would create an international incident of absolutely unprecedented diplomatic proportions. By converting him into a pure private citizen before the law, the monarchy has ensured his legal exposure is a domestic American matter entirely. The strategic decision to completely exclude the Sussex children, Archie and Lilibet, from any mention or activity surrounding the King's Washington visit is a cold and deliberate reinforcement of the non-working royal status that has been permanently imposed on the entire Montecito household. This move was specifically designed to prevent any possibility of a media reconciliation narrative emerging that could distract from the King's carefully orchestrated diplomatic objectives. As King Charles III and Queen Camilla prepare for the historic state banquet at the White House, the contrast between the sovereign and the spare has never in the entire history of the British monarchy been more stark or more painfully visible to a global audience. The King stands surrounded by the highest honors of the United States government, celebrated with full ceremony as the dignified head of a 1,000-year-old institution that has endured wars, revolutions, and the fall of empires. Meanwhile, Harry is reduced to a news item about visa fraud, drug admissions published in his own book, and the very real possibility of federal deportation. He watches from Montecito as the family he once tried to overshadow becomes the very institutional force that has allowed the legal mechanism to be positioned precisely above his head. The King's silence is not a mere absence of words. It is a profound and permanent declaration that the Crown has decisively moved on. The June 12th deadline is not simply a legal date on a government filing system. It represents the cold, final, administrative conclusion of a royal divorce that has been building for years. The institution has chosen its own survival, its global reputation, and the stability of the next generation over the protection of a wayward son who chose celebrity over service. Harry is no longer a protected royal asset. He is, in the clinical language of the state, a domestic legal irritation whose royal shield has been permanently and irreversibly retracted. The consequences of the June 12th unsealing of Harry's immigration records are binary, absolute, and equally devastating regardless of which direction the evidence points. If the documents reveal that Harry admitted to drug use on his visa application and was quietly granted a special government waiver, it will trigger a political firestorm of enormous proportions in the United States, further fueling the powerful law and order narrative about a corrupt elite class that operates permanently above the laws governing ordinary citizens. If the records instead reveal that Harry checked no on his application while his own published memoir loudly and publicly screams yes, the legal result under U.S. immigration law is mandatory and immediate deportation. There is no judicial discretion available